Good morning. Joining me today is Dr. Amir Khan, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Khan in here. He is at Baylor Scott and White Medical Center in Waxahachie. He is the Director of Intensive Care and the Head of Pulmonology or Pulmonary Critical Care at Baylor Scott and White. So welcome, Dr. Khan.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Good morning. We have a little over around 10 minutes that we can talk about some pretty important stuff. So what we're going to do, so that all of our listeners can really get some facts about COVID-19 and things that people want to talk about, we're going to talk for about 10 minutes on the radio, and then we have this recorded on the Waxahachie Chamber of Commerce page. And so if you want to continue listening to the after and the longer version, reference Waxahachie Chamber of Commerce on Facebook. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask you some really important questions, and we'll go for it. Sound good?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, so regarding COVID-19, how real is the threat?
The threat is very, very real. Initially, we thought it is in another country. Then it became very prevalent in Europe. That's where we started getting more information about it, a real picture of how serious this is. And then it hit New York, and the fact that it spread so rapidly there, and that the devastation it caused in the communities. And being a physician who's actually trained in New York, I did my critical care training in the Bronx Hospital, and then in the New York different hospitals. We've been in touch with our friends, and what we're hearing stories about the physicians themselves, the nurses that are there, and just what sort of patient population they're encountering and what sort of disease they're seeing. It's been very, very mind-blowing, even for a physician who has practiced over 25, 30 years now. Something that we read in books, we hear about the Spanish flu maybe over 70, 80, 90 years ago, and now it's knocking at our doorsteps. It's something that all of us have to very, very seriously have a chat about and be prepared as much as we can.
So with New York, you know how they're with the public transportation and everything going on there, so different than Texas. How do you feel like we as Texans, how vulnerable are we?
You're absolutely right. We've seen a trend where the metroplex, the bigger cities, have the disease spread very, very quickly. And one household member can not only affect the family, but his neighbors, but a whole community that they're living in. And you just need one person. Texas is a little bit different. We got more land. We don't use public transportation as much as the metroplex, where it's mandatory to use on a daily basis. Plus the weather, we think that also has a bearing. If it's cold, you want to be snugged in a confined sort of environment. And when it's spread out, you want to be out. Here, Texans, we want to go out a little bit more. In the evenings, we have a different lifestyle. So I think those things have bearing on how the disease, we want to say, has spread or is going to spread. But in general, we know whether it spreads or doesn't spread, as the pathology, the devastation that it causes, that doesn't differ, right? But if you've got it, then how you're going to spread it to other fellow beings, and if you're going to have the worst form of the disease, that's not going to change.
Right. Well, hold on. It's recording. Okay, sorry. So if the threat is real, how prepared is the hospital and the doctors here locally?
So one of the things I want to send a message out is to reassure all of our community members and people living in Ellis County and Waxahachie, just generally in Baylor being part of that, and just the general doctors that are around. We've been preparing for this now for over 6 weeks. We have done a lot of drills from nursing staff, physicians, people who provide meals in the hospital, cafeteria, everyone at every level has been preparing for this. I'll give you a few examples. The ventilator that the talk is about a lot, we've scaled up our ventilator capacity from about 8 to almost 60. So we've gone up to about 7-8 folds increase in our ventilator capacity. There's a talk that we have to isolate these patients, right? That's also a big other consideration. So from having generally 2 rooms, 3 rooms in the ICU, which were isolated, dedicated rooms, we've gone to now almost 60 rooms that we can do negative pressure isolation. So that's a scale up to its max capacity. The doctors who were practicing at different places, I can speak to on behalf of the ICU team, we were doing outpatient practice, and we've stopped all outpatient activities. And all of the teams have been on high alert and on standby to come in and report on a daily basis, see what's happening on the floor, on the ICU, looking at ground realities and checking what sort of patients are we seeing. The nurses the same. We called in all the nurses that some had left, some were doing outpatient daily routine activities. All of the ICU nurses have been called back in. So we've been preparing, and I think the administration in general, the staff members, the doctors, nurses, and the other allied professionals have all done a fantastic job. We're very, very ready here.
So the hospital is well prepared. How do you feel like the community is, and do you feel like there are things that we could be doing to be better prepared?
I think that's a brilliant question. This virus is going to come from the community, right? Mm-hmm. And if we got to prevent it from spreading, and the only way we can do that is bring as much awareness we can in the community. We all have to first acknowledge, like you said, the threat is real. And once we appreciate that and we say, yes, it is real, then we've got to prepare. Now, America is never gonna be the America it was before. We're gonna have to incorporate this in our genes, that from now on, we're always gonna come out in the morning and think about, and when we wake up, for example, we're gonna prepare our mind that we're gonna have to make COVID adjustments in our lifestyle. And this is gonna stay many months, if not years. So that attitude that this disease struck us, it was like a war, or is a war. Mm-hmm. It may come back again. The threat is real. And if we lower our guards, we're going to be in trouble. And when it does strike us, and we've seen thousands and thousands of American lives lost, and not just American lives, but there have been lives lost in the world, just generally. It begs the question that not just in America we're going to change our lifestyle, but just worldwide we're going to have different attitudes towards pandemic. Because pandemics is something that you're only going to see once in a lifetime, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's yeah, you're right. That's how it is. But it is going to have big bearings on us. The community in general now, we've seen a lot of good things out there, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen stores preparing. A lot of places have enforced social distancing, which is very, very critical. Some stores have gone on to the extent to say, hey, we're going to draw some lines, we're going to enforce distance amongst us. Others have put in hand sanitizers, for example, or wash your hands, or if you're going in a store, use this wipe to clean everything. Others need to be even more vigilant about it, especially if you have elderly, vulnerable community members. Because it's really, at the end of the day, we know that it's not going to kill everyone. Mm-hmm. But those who are very, very vulnerable, those are the ones we got to protect. So we have a responsibility. It's not just about Julie, me and you, it's about who we're going to protect. And those are our elderly people, those people who are on medications. Some of them don't even know they're immunocompromised in a way because they've never sort of looked at their immunity, analyzed that. And going forward, COVID has raised a lot of questions. Why is it that certain people are dying? Why are certain are not? Now we know elderly are a little bit more compromised. But why then are we seeing deaths in younger patients? So it's gonna beg a lot of questions, and as a community and as individuals, we have to educate not only ourselves, but the ones around us who are not ready for that change, even after seeing so much devastation.
Right. You know, something I've seen come up quite a bit. I see a lot of people posting saying, you know, the flu kills so many people every year, and that's, everyone's making a big deal about this, but the flu killed X amount of people last year. Why are we making such a big deal about COVID-19? What would you say to those people?
First of all, I get upset a little bit inside. I feel frustrated because if they walk with me one day in the ICU, they would never say that again. Mm-hmm. Flu does kill, there's no question, but this disease kills in a different way. When you see young 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and sometimes elderly people, your loved ones, in the ICU, and you're seeing such a dramatic, fast deterioration of their lungs, their kidneys, and their immune system, their clotting system, you begin to wonder, no, this is not flu, this is something different. This is a true pandemic going across the board, affecting every human being. It doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, what age you are, it kills. So it's a bit frustration. But the other thing we've seen, that this is a new disease. This is a new pathology. We don't know, first of all, what its morphology is. Then we don't know what the different type of strains it has. We don't even know properly the full scale of who it's going to affect. And then we don't have any good treatment against it. There is no vaccine yet. And forget about the vaccine, which is going to come down the road, and you know, hopefully we'll have our researchers working on it. We don't even have a good testing measure right now. And it's not easy to get tested. So I don't even know myself. Have I got the antibodies? Have I been exposed? And have I got the antibodies, and who I can affect? So this is nothing like flu. Flu, we've been prepared for years. We knew about flu, back when we were even little. And we've been modifying our approach to it. And we're making flu mandatory to be tested. This is a new hit.
You're seeing personally people in their, not just elderly people, but you're seeing people in their 40s, and it's affecting them. It's not affecting them just mildly. It's really taking over their bodies, right? That's
absolutely correct. Even in Ellis County, our locals, we've seen disease in 30 years old, 20 years old, late 20s, 30s. We have a 48, 49, 50-year-old.
And how does it affect them? Is it affecting them the same? I mean, is it really taking over and affecting them?
Absolutely. It takes over to the extent where we have to intubate, meaning put a tube in their lungs to support oxygen in the lungs to get across into their bodies.
For young people.
We're talking about very young people, yes. It's across the board right now. Maybe the incidence is a little bit less in younger people, but that doesn't mean they're not invincible. They could be, their immune system could be compromised for a number of things. Smoking, vaping, lack of exercise, just sedentary lifestyle. So how many of you sometimes you see and you say, well, gosh, are you really that age? I mean, you could be a 28, 30-year-old, and you look 40, 50, sometimes, pretty beyond your age.
I mean, not me, but yeah.
Not
Hey, you know what, man? This is such a good conversation. I hate to cut this off. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap this up on the radio right now, but like I said, we're going to continue. We have Sandy King in the room too. We're going to continue to have this conversation and keep asking some more questions. So please tune in to the Waxahachie Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and we're going to dive into a little bit more deeper questions. And Dr. Kahn, thank you so much for joining me on the radio today.
Julie, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the opportunity for being here.
All right,
Thank
guys,
you,
we'll
thank you.
talk to you guys next week. Join us on Facebook. Okay.
Very nice.
So we're still recording, right?
Yeah, so we're still recording, and we'll just keep